The documentary opens with haunting visuals of Stalingrad in the winter of 1942. Snow blankets the skeletal remains of buildings, smoke billows from unseen fires, and a sense of utter desolation permeates the scene. Animated maps detail the strategic importance of the Volga River and the relentless German advance deep into Soviet territory. The camera follows the German Sixth Army as it marches across the vast, dusty steppe, their faces grim and determined. Archival footage blends seamlessly with recreated scenes, setting the stage for the impending clash of titans. The initial narration emphasizes the scale of the operation and the unwavering resolve of both sides. Winter had tightened its grip on Stalingrad by late 1942. The once proud city was now a frozen wasteland, a graveyard of shattered dreams and broken promises. The air itself seemed to crackle with the tension of impending doom, a silent scream trapped within the icy wind. Every gust carried the scent of burning buildings and the metallic tang of blood, a grim reminder of the battle's ferocity. German soldiers, their faces hardened by months of relentless fighting, marched onward, their boots crunching on the frozen ground. They were the vanguard of the Sixth Army, confident in their superior training and unwavering belief in victory. Yet, beneath the surface of their bravado, a flicker of unease began to stir. The vastness of the Eastern Front, the sheer scale of the Soviet resistance, was starting to take its toll. Animated maps appeared on screen, tracing the relentless German advance deep into Soviet territory. Arrows of steel gray pierced the heart of the motherland, each one representing a division, a corps, an army. The Volga River, a vital artery for the Soviet war effort, became the focal point of the German offensive. Control of this strategic waterway meant control of the flow of supplies and reinforcements, the lifeblood of the Soviet defense. Archival footage flickered to life, grainy images of German panzers rumbling across the steppe, their guns bristling with menace. Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers screamed from the sky, unleashing their deadly payload upon the city below. These historical clips were interwoven with meticulously recreated scenes, bringing the past to life with terrifying realism. The camera lingered on the faces of the soldiers, both German and Soviet, capturing the raw emotion of the moment. Fear, determination, and a grim acceptance of fate were etched into their features. A narrator's voice, somber and authoritative, filled the silence. The Battle of Stalingrad was not merely a clash of armies. It was a collision of ideologies, a struggle for survival on an unprecedented scale. Both sides were locked in a death grip, neither willing to yield an inch. The fate of the world hung in the balance. The narration continued, emphasizing the strategic importance of Stalingrad and the unwavering resolve of both sides. For the Germans, it was the gateway to the Caucasus and its vital oil fields. For the Soviets, it was a symbol of national pride, a city that must be defended at all costs. The stage was set for a battle that would become a turning point in the Second World War. The camera panned across a desolate landscape, the wind howling through the ruins of a once great city. The frozen ground was littered with the detritus of war, shattered weapons, discarded helmets, and the frozen bodies of the fallen. The battle had only just begun, but the seeds of destruction had already been sown. The initial German advance met fierce resistance from the Soviet 62nd Army, who were determined to hold the city at all costs. The fighting was brutal and unrelenting, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The city was reduced to rubble, and the streets became a maze of death and destruction. The German soldiers, who had initially been confident of a swift victory, soon found themselves bogged down in a bloody stalemate. The Soviet soldiers, fighting for their homeland, displayed incredible courage and resilience. They were determined to make the Germans pay for every inch of ground. The battle raged on for months, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The city was transformed into a hell on earth, a place of constant fear and suffering. The civilians who remained in Stalingrad were caught in the crossfire, forced to endure unimaginable horrors. Many were killed or wounded, and those who survived were left to scavenge for food and shelter in the ruins. The battle for Stalingrad was a turning point in the Second World War. It marked the beginning of the end for the German war machine, and it demonstrated the unwavering determination of the Soviet people. The camera zooms in on a tattered Soviet flag waving defiantly amidst the ruins. a symbol of hope amidst the despair, a testament to the indomitable spirit of the human will. The narrator's voice returns, filled with a mixture of sorrow and pride. Stalingrad, a name that will forever be etched in the annals of history. A city of courage, a city of sacrifice, a city that refused to surrender. The frozen inferno, where the tide of war turned. The screen fades to black, leaving the viewer to contemplate the magnitude of the events that had just unfolded. The haunting visuals and somber narration linger in the mind, a powerful reminder of the devastating cost of war. The documentary prepares to delve deeper into the heart of the battle, exploring the brutal urban warfare that defined Stalingrad. The story shifts to the individual struggles and sacrifices that shaped the outcome of this pivotal moment in history. The stage is set for a harrowing journey into the depths of human endurance and the ultimate test of survival. The next chapter will reveal the true face of war, a face that is both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The battle for Stalingrad continues. The frozen inferno awaits. As the initial clash concluded, the narrative shifted to the brutal urban warfare that defined the Battle of Stalingrad. It was the infamous Rattenkrieg. Close quarters combat unfolded within the labyrinthine ruins of the city. Soldiers fought room to room, building to building, in a desperate struggle for survival. Every shattered window and bombed-out doorway became a new front line. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burning buildings and the metallic tang of blood. The relentless barrage of artillery never ceased, turning the once proud city into a pulverized wasteland. Amidst the chaos, the defense of Pavlov's house became a symbol of Soviet resilience. A small group of soldiers, outnumbered and outgunned, transformed an ordinary apartment building into an impregnable fortress. They fortified the walls with rubble, dug trenches in the basement, and turned every window into a firing position. For weeks, they held their ground against wave after wave of German assaults. Their unwavering determination inspired hope amidst the despair. The film highlights the devastating impact of the fighting on the civilian population. Trapped in the cellars and basements, they were caught in the crossfire of a relentless and unforgiving conflict. Food and water became scarce, and the constant shelling took a heavy toll on their bodies and minds. Families huddled together, praying for deliverance as the world around them crumbled. Children, their eyes wide with fear, witnessed horrors no child should ever see. The cries of the wounded echoed through the ruins, a constant reminder of the human cost of war. The gritty realism of the visuals underscores the sheer horror of urban warfare. Each scene is a tableau of destruction and suffering. The camera lingers on the faces of the soldiers, their expressions etched with exhaustion, fear, and grim determination. The film captures the claustrophobia of the underground bunkers and the deafening roar of the artillery. It shows the brutal reality of hand-to-hand combat, where survival depended on instinct and brute force. The film crew recreated the conditions of the battle with meticulous attention to detail. They used authentic weapons and uniforms, and they filmed in locations that closely resembled the ruins of Stalingrad. The result is a visceral and immersive experience that transports viewers back to the heart of the battle. One scene depicts a group of Soviet soldiers huddled in a ruined building, sharing a meager meal of bread and water. They are exhausted and demoralized, but they refuse to give up. Their commander, a grizzled veteran, reminds them of their duty to defend their homeland. He tells them that Stalingrad is not just a city, it is a symbol of Soviet resistance. If they can hold Stalingrad, they can defeat the Germans. Another scene shows a German soldier, separated from his unit, wandering through the ruins. He is lost and disoriented, and he is haunted by the faces of the dead. He comes across a group of civilians hiding in a cellar. They are terrified of him, but he does not harm them. Instead, he shares his food with them and helps them to find water. In that moment, he realizes the futility of war. The film also includes interviews with veterans from both sides of the conflict. They recount their experiences with raw emotion and unflinching honesty. They speak of the courage and sacrifice of their comrades, and they lament the senseless loss of life. Their stories provide a human face to the statistics of war. One Soviet veteran recalls the moment when he saw a young girl being killed by a German sniper. He says, that he will never forget the look on her face. A German veteran remembers the day when his best friend was killed by a Soviet mortar shell. He says that he still has nightmares about it. These personal accounts add depth and complexity to the film's narrative. They remind us that war is not just about armies and battles, it is about individual human beings. The film also explores the psychological impact of the battle on the soldiers. Many of them suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. They were haunted by nightmares, flashbacks, and feelings of guilt and shame. Some of them turned to alcohol and drugs to cope with their trauma. Others were unable to return to civilian life. The film shows how the Battle of Stalingrad left a lasting scar on the minds of those who fought in it. As the battle raged on, the city became a living hell. The streets were littered with corpses, and the air was filled with the stench of death. The fighting was so intense that the soldiers often had to resort to hand-to-hand combat. The Battle of Stalingrad was a turning point in World War II. It marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany, but it also came at a terrible cost. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians were killed or wounded in the fighting. The city of Stalingrad was reduced to rubble. The Battle of Stalingrad remains one of the bloodiest and most brutal battles in human history. Having shown the brutal urban warfare, the film now turns to Operation Uranus, the Soviet counteroffensive. Sweeping shots reveal a snow-covered battlefield. T-34 tanks rumble across the frozen landscape, spearheading the assault. An animated map illustrates the strategic encirclement of the German Sixth Army. The film then focuses on the plight of the trapped German soldiers. They face starvation, frostbite, and relentless Soviet attacks. Scenes of desperate men huddled in trenches convey the hopelessness of their situation. Their faces are etched with despair. One young soldier, barely old enough to shave, stares blankly ahead, his eyes wide with fear. He clutches a photograph of his family, now a distant memory. Another man gnaws on a frozen crust of bread, his hands trembling with cold. A sergeant coughs, his breath misting in the frigid air. Any word from the high command? He croaks, his voice hoarse. His comrade shakes his head, the gesture barely perceptible beneath layers of grime and ice. Nothing. They've forgotten us. The camera pans across the desolate landscape. A blizzard rages, blurring the lines between earth and sky. The wind howls like a banshee, carrying with it the mournful cries of the dying. Inside a makeshift bunker, a group of officers huddle around a flickering candle. They pore over maps, their faces grim. Our situation is untenable, one officer declares. We're surrounded, outnumbered, and outgunned. Another officer slams his fist on the table. We will fight to the last man, but his words ring hollow in the face of such overwhelming despair. The documentary then cuts to scenes of Soviet soldiers advancing through the snow. They are clad in white camouflage, their faces determined. They move with purpose, their weapons at the ready. The relentless advance continues, pushing the German Sixth Army closer to the brink of collapse. Finally, the documentary culminates with the surrender of Field Marshal Paulus. He stands before the Soviet generals, his face pale and defeated. He removes his Iron Cross and hands it over, a symbolic gesture of surrender. A slow, emotional pan across the ravaged city at sunrise follows. The camera lingers on the skeletal remains of buildings, the frozen corpses of soldiers. It is a somber reminder of the devastating cost of war. The sun rises, casting a pale light over the scene. But even its warmth cannot thaw the frozen wasteland of Stalingrad. The battle is over, but the scars will remain forever. The silence is broken only by the wind, whispering through the ruins. It carries the echoes of the fallen, a haunting reminder of the human cost of war. The film ends with a quote from a survivor. Stalingrad was hell on earth, a place where men became animals and hope died. The screen fades to black. The memory of Stalingrad lingers, a chilling testament to the horrors of war. It serves as a warning, a plea for peace in a world too often consumed by conflict. The end.